Should you play Duet Night Abyss? Duet Night Abyss is a new gacha game that just released. Wait, hold up a second. Actually, Duet Night Abyss is a new anime RPG game that just released. That's right, DNA is one of the few anime live service games in recent times to not only remove character weapon gacha and stamina progression gatekeeping, but also incorporate those systems that would normally be stuck behind the gacha wall in other games into the actual progression of the game. So there's still ways to get those extra character and weapon copies, but it's all based on how much you play rather than how much you pull. It has good visuals, interesting gameplay, and a surprising story so far, but is it worth your time? Sure, removing gacha is nice and all, but does that make Duet Night Abyss a game worthy of your time? Let's find out, shall we? Now, I won't be explaining fully how to get characters or weapons in this video. I'll have a beginner's guide video that'll go into more depth for that coming out soon, but all you really need to know is that if you complete these missions called covert commissions and use these secret letters at the start, you'll get a chance to get the shards to create a character or parts to create a weapon. This means that since there's no progress-based gacha, all the characters and weapons are farmable. There is still a little bit of RNG in the process of getting the character shards or weapon parts. You aren't always guaranteed to get the character or weapon parts after completing the mission needed for those things, so there is still a bit of a grind involved for sure, but this basically means that your character strength and their weapon strength is directly tied to the amount of time you want to invest into the game. If getting the character is all you care about, you can grind for a short while and then get all the shards you need for the character. If you want to get all the copies needed to max out the character and the same for their weapons, you'll obviously have to grind a lot more, but there's nothing stopping you from doing that. The game is your ocean and you get to choose however shallow or deep you want to dive into it. Personally, I think this is a huge boon to have. A lot of similar live service anime games do not have this aspect of gacha-less progression, and no matter how much time and effort you invest into those games, there will always be a wall that you will hit stopping you from making your account stronger unless you gacha for characters or weapons. Having everything be farmable definitely makes the game more grindy, so don't expect to be in for 30 minutes and out with a fully maxed everything, but this gives the players the feeling that the time they are investing in is worth it and actually being put towards use of something. Furthermore, it feels as if the devs really respect the time and effort players are putting into their game and really want to reward you all for it. As I said before, it's a grind for sure. I think it took me like a little bit over 10 runs before I was able to make my first character, but the grind is placed in your hands and based on however much you want to do, and I think that's super nice and kind of unique to a degree. But progression isn't the only part of this game. Cutscenes, world environment, character designs, the visuals are also a huge part of any game and they're interesting here. Overall, the game does look good for the most part. The world environment is cool and immersive. It kind of reminds me of Nier Automata to a degree. I don't really know why it does, but it just does, and to me that's not a bad thing. Character designs are all pretty cool too. Most of the characters have unique designs that fit them well. I'm not personally wowed by any of them yet, but I do think that they are pretty decent and that most people are going to be able to find a character design that they're going to vibe with for the most part. The character animations, however, are a little bit weird. The game simultaneously can have the character's movements be super expressive and super stiff too. The stiffness appears in both gameplay and cutscenes, although I think cutscenes will be more noticeable for the stiffness for sure. I don't say this as like a how could the devs do this type of moment. The developers Pan Studio doesn't seem to be a big game dev studio, and DNA also seems to be one of their first games they've ever made, so I don't want me saying these things to seem like I'm dragging on them, but I know that the visuals are important to some people and do want to set the expectation that if you are looking for AAA title level smoothness, you are most likely not going to be able to find that here, at least not yet. I also want to talk about the visuals since from my personal experience playing, the visuals are where I saw the most bugs. I play with English text and Chinese voice acting, and there were times where I saw the dialogue of conversations appear in Chinese characters. I'm unsure if that was an issue that only happened with my specific settings, but I did see that happen a few times in the first few hours of me playing the game. The game also does stutter a bit too. Seems to happen mostly in multiplayer from what others are reporting, but for me it happened in areas like the sewer. I'm unsure what specifically causes the stuttering, whether it's graphic quality overload or something else. I play on an NVIDIA 5070 graphics card with an AMD Ryzen 9 series CPU and 64 gigs of RAM, so it shouldn't be the graphics quality for me at least. I think the devs are aware of these issues and currently or have already fixed them, but something to look out for, especially if you play on a lower end system. Gameplay wise, you'll find the game to feel fairly similar to Warframe. A lot of the movement, combat, character skills, and more share similarities, so it's hard not to notice the resemblance. The combat is pretty cool. Each character is able to use one melee weapon and one ranged weapon on top of their own innate skill ability and ultimate ability. You're also able to catch these animals called genie mons that also give you a support ability to use too, which is neat. Each weapon type has unique attack strings and patterns, and different characters have bonuses with specific weapon types that make it cool to find the weapons that work the best with the character you're playing. The nice thing is that you can preview the abilities for the character in the armory menu, so if there's a character you don't have, you get to see their abilities beforehand, so you can figure out if there's someone that you want to grind for. The interactions between enemies are varied to a degree. I often found myself either mowing through them like a field of grass, or stuck smacking them like they were a brick wall, depending on their level. Truthfully, there isn't really any challenge when going against the regular fodder enemies. And outside the specific boss fights, there isn't much opportunities to combo enemies or anything along the lines of that. The combat is fun, the baseline of it is solid and very fun, but personally I feel like it is missing a few things. The first part is that striking enemies feels off. I don't know whether it's the VFX or SFX, but the impact when hitting an enemy doesn't feel strong enough. It almost feels like your sword goes through them and they just fall over with no feedback. The combat also feels a little one note too, and I think it's due to enemies feeling a little too easy and characters not having enough abilities. The regular enemies feel too easy to run through sometimes, as they tend to die after 3 sword swipes for me, so I think either turning up their difficulty a little or adding some other minor things to increase their challenge would be good too. I think that the characters also need either another skill or they need air attack strings with their melee weapons. I think having one skill and one ult is a little too one-dimensional for the combat system that they have, and having the characters have another second ability would help add to making them feel more complex and more fleshed out. Adding air attack combos would be good too, as outside the specific characters, attacking with a melee weapon in the air causes your character to slam the ground, which is cool, but I think it would be even more fun to allow characters to have an attack string in the air that lets them juggle their enemies for a few seconds before slamming them back to the ground. Adding this would help make the combat feel more fleshed out, since it's already a really solid baseline, and I think it would help alleviate the issues of the combat feeling too simple to a degree. The movement, however, can be a little clunky. Some parts of it are cool though, like when you're shooting or reloading in the air, you hover, which I think is really fun and allows for some cool movement tech. The regular jumping and dashing movements are fine too and flow well, but the climbing is yucky. You're technically supposed to press space repeatedly to jump up walls, but it doesn't work correctly most times. Sometimes it'll let you jump up, other times it won't let you jump. Sometimes it'll even make you fall a little before you jump up again. It's kind of like the game doesn't know whether to register you are either climbing the wall or double jumping, but it's a horribly clunky mechanic that needs to be adjusted. The helix jump, on the other hand, is really cool. The helix jump is a special jump that occurs when sliding and then jumping. It's really useful and basically the fastest way to get anywhere. It's also nice since you can aim with it for different angles, so you can go horizontal to go farther or vertically to go higher. It can be a little disorientating when trying to go vertically, but I saw this video from Bren online where if you look directly down and helix jump, you'll get the maximum height jump, which helps a lot with the disorientation issue. Outside of those issues, the movement is good. The parkour can be really fun when you have strong momentum propelling you forward and makes your characters feel faster and even more agile, which is super cool. However, the story is actually really solid. There will be no spoilers here. Everything shown will be either blurred out or irrelevant to the main story, and I won't talk about it outside general topics and vibes, so you don't have to worry about that. I personally wasn't expecting the story to be much. I usually am someone who plays games mostly for the gameplay first and then the story second, and I really wasn't expecting much here. The story, however, I think is actually pretty good. They don't shy away from mature themes, and the plot is actually pretty interesting. The plot does start a little similar to how you would expect an anime live service game to start, but I think it branches off and takes a notably different turn than other games. The pacing so far is pretty solid. I'm not fully complete with all the story missions yet, but I think the story so far has had a nice equilibrium between lore and action. I also think that it was good at invoking emotions too and dropping plot points when it felt appropriate. The only main issue I've had with the story so far is the visuals of the cutscenes, as sometimes the mouth movements of the characters don't match with the timing of the words they are saying. The cutscene animations can look a little stiff or wonky like I mentioned earlier, but they weren't enough to pull me out of being immersed, which I think is good. Voice acting is also pretty solid too. I played a little bit in both English and Chinese voiceovers, and both sounded good and didn't feel like the acting was off in any area so far. Overall, the story is pretty good and the thing I think the game has done the best at so far. So, is Duet Night Abyss a game you should play? I think yes it is. While there are definitely some issues that need to be fixed or some things that need to be addressed, the game overall is pretty solid and has surpassed the expectations I had for it originally. A lot of the issues it currently has are fairly minor in the grand scheme of things, and with how passionate and communicative the devs have been, they are things I feel will be sorted out soon enough. The overall skeleton of the game is really solid and the general vibe is also really good too. I think all that really needs to be done is to comb out a couple of the issues and the game will truly be able to shine more than it currently has. My main complaint is with the combat, as I ranted about a few seconds ago. It's still really good, but I think once they fine-tune it a little bit more, it'll flow a lot better and feel even better to play. But even with all those issues, the story alone is enough for me to recommend that people give this game a shot. I personally think that the story is really good and it really does deserve more recognition than what it's getting currently. So yes, you should play Duet Night Abyss. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. The game is actually surprisingly really fun, so I hope those who are interested do give it a shot. If you do end up trying out the game, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to know how it feels for you so far. Don't forget to subscribe for more gacha content. I'll have a beginner's guide video coming out soon, so make sure to stick around for that. Thank you so very much for watching till the end again, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye! No lucky strikes, you're all it takes to be in my zone. So show me something, just a little sign. Yeah, I'm always ready, so just tell me when to go. Call me up whenever you're feeling low. Stimulate your mind, we can take it slow. You got me going crazy now, falling into you, 'cause you're on my mind.